Hi, I'm Mary Cross and welcome to the Building Bliss podcast. This week I'm excited to welcome our first international guest, Dorothy May, who dialed in all the way from Australia. Now, Dorothy's many things, as you'll come to hear on the podcast, but I know her as a comedy legend. We have a brilliantly wide-ranging discussion covering the little acts of bravery we have to do every day, her love for her art, what it's like making a living as a creative, and her own very unique vision of success. Now, as I say, this one was recorded remotely and there was a bit of a delay, so please bear with us if we talk over each other, but I think you're going to love the content of this one. So hi, and welcome to the Building Bliss podcast. Very excited to have Dorothy May on today. My first international podcast guest, coming all the way from Brisbane in Australia. Very honoured. Now, Dot, as I call her, I've checked that I can call her Dot because I am officially her friend now. So Dot is the ultimate multi-hyphen person I've ever met. So I'm just going to list out what she does. She's a comedian, comedy coach, singer, songwriter, producer, scriptwriter, podcaster, and all-round dynamic force in the world, which I think's a pretty impressive introduction. So how are you today?
Thank you so much. That's so beautiful. I'm good. How are you going?
I'm good, yeah. I'm a bit jealous of your
My
weather.
jaw hurts. I smile. I'm jealous of your weather. It's so hot here. I just break a sweat from breathing, so it's pretty special.
Yeah, Dot and I we're asking if we can develop an app where she can send some of her heat here and we can send some of our cold over to Australia. I'm not sure that's possible yet, but you never know.
Yeah.
So thanks for agreeing to being on the podcast.
That would be so
good. Obviously, the Building Bliss podcast.
Thanks for having me. And I love the dynamic.
Yeah, we'll have to. Sorry if we're talking over each other, but we're just working around the delay to Australia. We're like one of those news reporters where they stand like that for 10 seconds and then get the question. So I'll remember to pause and let you speak so that we're not talking over each other.
I love that.
Good.
We're learning already.
So the Building Bliss podcast is focused on the 5 pillars of bliss, which are bravery, laughter, inspiration, spark, and success. So we're going to start with bravery because, Dot, you are one of the most fearless and brave people I think I've ever met. And I think I should say before we get into it how I've met Dot. I actually met her through Instagram. We were both part of a shared creative collective, and there was just something about her that drew me to her energy. And then I found out that she had a business called The Humour Experiment, which is basically focused on teaching comedy to people. So it seemed a natural progression to get in touch with her with my comedy career starting off. I think it was around March this year that we first properly connected, and then I started doing one of her courses, and we've become firm friends in the process, which has been amazing. Just shows that distance is no obstacle to making friends in this day and age. So yeah, that's how we met. So starting with bravery then, what's the moment in your life that you think you had to be the bravest? And I know this is going to be a doozy of an answer.
I feel like I'm going to disappoint you, Mary.
Not at all.
And you're welcome to go fishing a little bit. You're always welcome to go fishing. I trust you and I give you that permission. I was thinking about this question earlier today, and I think that it just occurred to me that bravery is something that I feel that I have to tap into every day for whatever reason, because I don't think that I don't know, I've never felt like I'm in a position where I can just sort of sit on my laurels and just go cool and now I can just coast. I have always felt like I have to be brave in the decisions that I make each day to push myself to whatever next thing that I need to accomplishes or achievers, and with the hopes that one day I'll sort of achieve my dream of being secure and comfortable and safe in my physical world enough to really flourish and do my art justice. So I feel like, it's weird. It's almost some of the moments in the past that other people might judge as quite brave, or might hear of the experiences I've been through and go, "Wow, that takes incredible bravery." Sometimes I find the small moments of bravery just as challenging, but like in a different way. I think, like just getting up and deciding to do something drastically different that day than you've done before, with the hopes of getting a new outcome. I find change really brave. So I don't know.
Because you've
I feel like I'm
you've
disappointed you with my
no,
answer.
not at all. No, because the thing that's stood out to me, obviously through your business with the humour experiment, is how you have really tried to do something very different in that space. But you have faced a lot of adversity because of that, and a lot of challenges from the local community who don't like things being shaken up. They like the status quo because it suits them. So what made you want to take that step to set up the humour experiment and stride out on your own?
Maybe insanity.
Well, that is the mark of every genius, isn't
because
it?
I sort of because I sort of think about it now, and I think, oh, Dorothy, what were you thinking? But I'm too far down the road now to turn back, so this is what it's going to be. But I think that when I started this, I started it from a personal need to just, a need and desire to actually experience my full potential in the space of comedy. And as much as I've had a lot of people, a lot of naysayers, which is a gentle way of putting it, a lot of bullies, come my way in the process, I've always felt a deep sense of deservingness of being able to do what I want to do. That hasn't necessarily translated to a deservingness of the approval of gatekeepers, or to achieve any particular outcome, or they're sort of different categories to me. But what I've always felt a deep inherent sense of knowing is that I, like every human being, have a right to do the thing that brings me the greatest joy, and that is to be able to make myself laugh and make other people laugh, and just enjoy the bliss of being able to delight in the silliness and frivolity of life, but also to delight in the moments where we're in excruciating pain, and like laughter is the only medicine, So yeah, I think that it feels like an insane thing to do, based on how much I've been made aware that it can rub certain people the wrong way. But the truth of it always just comes back to me, and when I go, finish my day and think about what I've spent my day doing and what I want to spend tomorrow doing, it's comedy, and it's joke writing, and I think for me, like, comedy and joke writing it also extends further than just the laughter and the humour aspect. I love, and you know this about me, Mary, but I love absurdity. And the realm of absurdity allows me to just get lost in my most silly, childish, wild imagination and creativity, and be absolutely bizarre and weird and quirky, all of the parts of me that haven't necessarily always been accepted and approved of in society, but are so in my cells and so a part of who I am. It's a big permission slip to live the way that I want to live and just revel in that. and so yeah, there's just a sense of deep authority, I guess. And so even when, I'm dealing with haters, as Taylor Swift would coin the term, it doesn't shake my deeper sense of authority. It obviously shakes the surface stuff and is never pleasant and can be really difficult, but I know who I am and what I want to do. Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. And it sounds like it's something that was deep seated from a very young age. Did you always know you wanted to be a performer in some way when you were a child?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's to be cliche, I think it definitely stems from a similar place that I think it does for a lot of clowns, and that is I was depressed from a young age, and recently I was working with a healer who was able to identify that I've been depressed since I was 3, to which I laughed very loud.
Quite a revelation, isn't
as
it?
a clown will always do. And when that was revealed, I laughed so loud, and just like it was just such a release, because I I knew it. I already knew it, but it's always nice and validating when someone else can see it or pick up on it. And yeah, it was, when I think about my childhood, it was a coping mechanism for sure. Even now, in the darkest moments, I will always laugh. Like if I go through something really traumatic, I will have the deepest belly laugh and find the pleasure in it. Like it's a bit cuckoo, but I've learned to find just such a deep sense of joy in those moments, and I learned that early. I learned that really early, like from being a really young kid to uh, being in the presence of like my mother, for instance, who had her own mental health challenges. And yeah, I knew that if I could make her laugh and bring joy into the home, I would have some power in changing that environment for myself. And so I would use that. I would use that superpower and go, if I can be an absolute dork and make, my mother laugh, for example, then
Yeah, I really resonate with that. Obviously, with similar in the respect
apologies.
that my mum had mental health issues, and yeah, that was my escape route. And yeah, the joy that you could bring into the home and diffuse the tension that's sitting there all the time. Like you say, it's the
I love
ultimate
that.
power. And I think so many
We're learning
comedians
already.
have that background, don't they? Of I think it was Jimmy Carr who said, if you meet a comedian, ask which one of their parents was sick when they were a child or depressed, because it comes from that very early age of transferring pain into humour,
I think that you get tired.
which moves us seamlessly into the L and the laughter, of how important laughter is in getting through life. And it seems like it was literally your saviour.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was. Now, I had a couple of tools, and this is where the multi-hyphenate comes in. Music was also an escape for me, and movies was an escape for me too. Like, wow. Wow. And even now I do want to make sure that I actualize that dream of being in films at some point in my life, because that it'll be a gift to that child who used to disappear into them as a kid. And yeah, those tools. I think that when you're a young person, like a really young person, and you're in a situation like that, you have so few resources that when you do find things that work, whether it is comedy or escapism or a mixture of both, you make the most of it. You hone those skills, because yeah, it's what you have.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm the classic, got bullied at school, so use the humour to then disarm people. But it does make you quite a well-rounded individual, shall we say? So, what makes you laugh, or who makes you laugh now? Because I know we have lots of laughs, as you say, getting very absurd. But what
Yeah,
really gets you going?
I love laughing with you, Mary, and joking with you. It's one of my favourite things. Um, ah, it's for me. It's always the really far out stuff that's really not socially acceptable, but just because it's weird and over the top and too much, like. I delight in that so much, and I think that also comes from being the kid that was often too much, you know, for any given situation, and too flamboyant or too over the top or too excited, hyperactive, or you know, too obsessed or like with majesty, you know. So it's the absurdity for me, and even and it's the comedy, but it's also a playfulness. Yeah, that's what sort of gets me going. I was thinking of a couple of examples, but then I can't remember the names of them, so I can't reference things. But you know, it's where, and like it's where other things intersect too. It's, you know, ridiculous, silly dancing and clowning and fun, you know, funny and wacky raps and, you know, references to things that are out of this world, and it's the wild and wacky humor that I love deeply, and even now it's the silly, trivial. You know, the silliest, most simplest things can make me laugh the most. And, you know, I love fart jokes. Like, I have not outgrown fart jokes, you know.
So have you got a favourite fart joke? Because we do ask everyone what their favourite joke is. It generally puts people on the spot because they can't think of any. But I thought you would have a good favourite joke.
Yeah. I just did one recently. I'm just going to quickly reference it.
Is this one of your own?
And it made me giggle a little bit. And it was just from our advanced comics course, one of the prompts. And I said, I've chosen to live on cloud 9 because 10 and 11 are too close to God's butt.
That's a perfect insight into your comedy brain, I think.
Yeah, I love it. So, you know, I never get sick of farts. They say for comedians, farts are like 1-year-old comics, but maybe my growth is stunted. I feel like I'm Benjamin Buttoning my comedy.
Yeah. Well, I think you are tapping into like a childlike playfulness, aren't you? And I think that's something that we lose as adults. I've just been reading a book, and there's something called the humour cliff. And I'm just going to make up the statistics because I can't remember them. But there's something like when you're a child, you laugh on average 90 times a day, for example, when you're at like up to the age of around 10. And then you get into your 30s and you laugh around maybe 4 to 5 times a day if you're lucky.
No!
And it's this cliff, and it falls off. But then as you get older, there's like a big dip. And then once you get back into your like 60s, 70s, suddenly you start finding things funny again. Now, whether that's because you've got through the stress of surviving life and middle age, and then maybe you've got grandkids and they bring that playfulness back into your life. But it's a really sad, isn't it, to think that people might only be laughing 3 or 4 times a day.
Yeah. I think responsibility, to be honest, can be a huge killer, a huge dampener of humour. And I feel like that's where that comes in with kids and older adults, because even recently I've had to make a lot of lifestyle changes, and I'm going back to the drawing board and looking at how to reconfigure everything from the ground up. And I'd found that the way that I was operating in my business and the exercises, how I was going about things, there was so much responsibility and not enough weight taken off my shoulders, just too much I was carrying without actually looking at more effective ways of supporting myself from underneath in the support system of doing the things that I want to do. And that overbearing level of responsibility that almost felt like I could never keep up with it was really sucking a lot of the capacity for me to be funny. Even while teaching and creating comedy, I could feel it really dampening that ability. So I think, fun tip, helpful tip, if people are wanting to tap into more more humor again, that would definitely be a recommendation, would be to kind of look at the level of responsibility that you have in your day-to-day life and how to make things easier for yourself so you can kind of let loose a little bit and relax and not feel like you're under the pump, so that you can actually play a little bit, have a bit of room to play.
Yeah, well, I think that comes back to what I was saying. I think you're a brave and fearless person. Is that making a living as a creative? I think is the most difficult thing you can do, because it's so hard.
Yeah.
A, for people to value you, to value what you're offering,
Yeah.
and then to actually monetize that as well, whilst maintaining your creativity. That's a real struggle, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, it's I'm in an interesting spot because I've been making a living from my creative outlets for the last 3 years, and I'm I'm in a stage of reassessing that and going, what changes need to be made for this to be more sustainable for the long term. And it's interesting to be in a position where I feel like I have a lot of questions that are unanswered at the moment, and I'm sort of sitting in those questions more. I think when I speak to the likes of yourself, Mary, and other people that I trust that I'm close to and need to let off steam, I'll be like, this is awful, this is cooked and you can't, and it's the worst. And, I say all of those like heated surface level feelings of the experience. But on a deeper level, I don't believe a lot of those surface experiences are true, are the reality of the situation. I just think that a lot of the surface experiences that I experience and other artists feel are the challenge and are the adversity to understanding how to do it, because we see it. There are people out there successfully doing it, and it can be a slog and a hard road as you work it out.
You've recently gone viral on Instagram with a difficult comedy gig experience, haven't you, with a heckler, which really just reinforced everything that you were dealing with in the moment, but like 3,000-fold. I
Yeah.
mean, do you want to tell us a bit about what happened with that reel?
Yeah, and for anybody that's listening and wants to check it out, you're welcome to. It's still up on Facebook because I can't actually archive it on Facebook, but on Instagram I've actually archived it because it was just a consistent stream of harassment, and in my head I was weighing it up, going, is this worth it? No, I let it go for 2 to 5 days, I think. And then eventually I just went, this is never going to end. And, what I'm doing online is needs to be more than this moment of harassment. And so I think that was also the battle, is I was going, oh, I'm getting so much attention. This is fantastic. But also this is not what I want my brand to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is not like the comedy courses that I'm selling, or this is not the jokes that I'm telling, really. So yeah, how much, I think, I turned it off, but I think it got to all up, I think it got to, between Facebook and Instagram, it was up to like 600,000 views, I think.
And
which is pretty
thousands
wild.
of comments as well. Thousands of comments.
Oh,
The comments, they are like a bin fire.
Yeah, it was wild. There was one session alone where I deleted 400 comments of just harassment. Like, of just sexual DB harassment. It was, it was wild. And so for anybody that's listening, the clip, to be brief, the clip essentially was me trying to do stand-up comedy. Well, me successfully doing it until a man in the audience was yelling out, "Show us your tits," several times and interrupting my punches, and it got to such a distracting point where, you know, as a comedian, you'll always spin things and be witty and clever and then bring the audience back to focus on what you're doing. And it just was like the third time around, and it happened again, and it was like at the peak of a massive build-up of one of my longer form jokes, and I was just so frustrated. And so then it just got to a point where it was like hit 3, and they pretty much demolished my set anyway, and I just thought, this is it, and I'm just gonna throw them out. So I just told them to leave the room essentially. And then when they finally left, everyone just gave loud applause. And I said, well, I can't remember, I said something smart ass like, I said many things that were very smart ass after that. but essentially this clip is, you know, being sexually harassed on stage, me kicking out this guy, and the audience applauding. And yeah, it really did spread like wildfire, which was pretty interesting. And it really brought out all of the trolls from the basement, that's for sure.
Oh my word! I know. I mean, some of them. It just reinforced the very point you're trying to make by ejecting the person in the first place. But it was all the like,
yes,
well, you're a comedian, that you should expect this, you should put up with this, you should be able to put them in their place. And I think, as we said at the time, you know, can you imagine someone trying to do brain surgery with someone like shouting over the gallery going, "You're flaming galah," as I was been trying to get that in, because obviously I'm picking up all the Aussie lingo. But yeah, there's really no other job that people think that it is acceptable that you put up with harassment. No. And I think that comes back to what you were saying to start about the culture of where it's come from, that is just accepted. And I think certainly over here that is cracked down on a lot more now. You know, certainly in comedy clubs, people are told not to heckle. You'll just be hoofed out. I've been in a comedy club in London where someone said something racist, they were gone. You know, no questions. And again, the audience cheers because it's ruining it for everybody else. They haven't come to see some knobhead in the audience. They've come to see the comedians.
Yeah. And I think I was just surprised because usually in our audiences, you know, we do intimate shows. Like, we're not doing, you know, theatres of hundreds of people at this stage. Like, we're doing, you know, intimate shows of 40, 50 people. And so it's our community, it's people that we connect with and that sort of thing. So I've never actually had to give a stern talking to before a show to be like, don't heckle, or for me it's kind of like, have common sense. Like, you just wouldn't anticipate it. Like I said, like in a theatre, you just wouldn't anticipate that you need to say, you know, don't get up and scream things in the middle of numbers, please. You know what I mean? Like, people, we don't do that. We don't give that, you know, warning when we go to theatre, because we just expect that people aren't like Neanderthals. But and so that's why I was taken by surprise, because I don't do pub shows. Like, this was at a bar, and this was at an event that I'd curated, and I had no idea. And, you know, it wouldn't have happened. And what was interesting is it wouldn't have happened from our audience, because our audience was made up of people that came to support the comedians, and so they would have respected them and wanted to see them do well. And that was the interesting thing, is that this came from the person that came with the owner, so they had no connection to the space. They just came for a night out. So yeah, that being said, obviously, you know, the processes have changed here on out, but, you know, the sorts of events, there are different ways that you can go about solving this issue, particularly when you're someone like myself, where you're producing events, you're putting things up and you're running the show. You can definitely forewarn people for sure and just say, hey, here are the standards. But I actually don't really want to do that, because I think that in any other situation I will just remove someone. Like I'm not gonna even be talking to people at that level. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing of like, if you have to say don't spit in somebody's face, like the person that you're having to say that to clearly isn't like capable of being in that space and holding that level of respect. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like 1 + 1 = 2. You know, if you can't work that out, you probably shouldn't be watching a show and you need to be removed. So for me in future, it's just removing people straight away. And, you know, after that situation, I told the owner, I said, we're not going to come back. We're not going to be performing here. That was not appropriate. And there are several different ways that will be deterred in the future. Like, for instance, the next show that we have planned is for the end of January, and that will be at a really lovely, in a private room of a bar for this event. And the event will also, you know, come with drinks and canapes and things like that. And so it'll be a greater price for the ticket and for the whole experience and the show. So once again, you're going to attract a different demographic, and people are going to come in with a different sort of level of respect for what you're doing. And outside of that as well, you know, I'm booking a theatre as well for a showcase next year too. And you know, we'll be performing more in theatre spaces as opposed to, you know, these other sort of spaces where the courtesy and the respect is just inherent in the form. So that, you know, there are some good, lovely little changes.
Yeah. Lessons
that have
learned.
already come from it.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you're saying about theatres being better, but they actually had to call the riot police to a performance of The Bodyguard in Manchester because 2 members of the audience kept singing over the top of the performers, and it caused like a mass brawl in the theatre because everyone was so sick of them singing. So it can happen in theatres as well. Maybe just in Manchester, I don't know, but crazy.
It's wild.
So we kind of touched on it a little bit before, but your inspiration. So you were saying that you're massively inspired by a lot of people in the US. So is that your main source of inspiration, or have you got quite a broad number to call on?
I'm inspired by the US, and you know, there are things that I'm not a fan of. Obviously, the gun laws, abortion rights. You know, I'm not saying that the US are like angelic of any sort, but when it comes to comedy and entertainment, what I love about what I see from the US, as a generalization, is that it's the grandiose kind of magnificence of and the majesty that they're willing to inhabit and invest in to make brilliant art, to make our jaws drop, to make people go wow, to create a spectacle, to elevate people to a status of where we can be in awe. And it's that ability to create a sense of awe around, you know, the arts, around entertainment, around art forms. And there's, as much as like it takes a level of confidence and conviction, and one might almost say ego, but like I would say healthy ego, you know, ego to do that. And actually, conversely, you know, we live in a world of opposites, of polarities. And in order to be that, like, inherently full of majesty, you have to have that same opposing force of humility. Like, you can't inhabit a sense of majesty without kind of bowing your head in reverence and going, I worship the ground you walk on, to your audience, because an audience isn't going to partake and enjoy something that's just pure arrogance. You know, majesty isn't pure arrogance. Majesty must also carry humility in order for an audience to want to engage and follow and just, serve and worship. And it's that incredible ability that I see from that culturally in the US that I think is amazing. I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm not saying it ain't flawed. Like, there's obviously a lot of corruption and there would be a lot of arrogance and narcissism in that melting pot too. But I don't think that we talk about like the positives enough, and I don't think that we even acknowledge it or maybe even see it and know that that's what it is. I think that we just get starstruck and we don't know how to put it into words. But I think that that's what it is. I think it's a country of artists and entertainers that will bet on themselves and go big and put their everything on the line, and people will worship that. And I think that that's really cool. And I think as an entertainer, that's what we want. We want to go all out. We want it to be a spectacle. We want it to be one of those pinch me moments where you go, I am on cloud nine. This is the best experience of my life, whether you're in the audience or whether you're performing, and I know that a lot of the specials aren't actually filmed at Radio City, but I love that venue. Like that venue has housed some comedy, and I even look at that venue and I go, even the drapes, like I would just stare and drool at the drapes for a day. Like, I just want to be in that venue to touch the drapes. So it's in everything, from the architecture even to, the curtains to it's in their way of life, I think. It is interesting, and it's a bit of a wormhole, so I won't go too deep into it, but I do want to touch on it. It is interesting, though, looking at, the recent strikes in the entertainment industry over there, because I think that the future, I don't know what the future looks like. Like, this is what America has been, and this is what I still believe that it does quite well, but there has been a lot of strain on artistry and entertainment over there from the actual artists and actual creators on the ground. There's been a lot of strain for them, not from them, for them. So I don't know what the future of entertainment looks like from the US or even globally, but definitely in the past, and even, as a kid, it was always a, jaw-dropping awe moment when watching entertainment from there.
Yeah.
And I think the UK have a lot of that in common too. I think that they're a lot, definitely, the UK is definitely a lot stronger than Australia, for sure.
Yeah, I think the difference for me between British people and Americans is the self-confidence. Like, Americans are very good at saying, I am good at this, and I'm not ashamed that I'm good at this, and I'm not ashamed to tell you that I'm good at this, because that's how good I am. And I think that's probably, it comes across as arrogance.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it comes across as arrogance to a lot of other nations, and obviously Brits are known as being very self-deprecating. So we'll be like, oh no, this is crap, I'm no good at this, and then so that's a real big dichotomy between the two nations. And I think that's something we could all take a drop of occasionally, because I think, the imposter syndrome thing, if we all just took a little ounce of that self-belief and said, no, actually, I am good at this, I am good, and I'm gonna own that.
Well, I think the actual intellectual wit that has come out of entertainment in the UK is amazing. When I think of comedy from the UK, I just think intellectual wit, like just such clever, witty humour, and that's undeniable. But I think that what's really interesting about what you just said is that you were talking about self-deprecating, and when you think about the energy of that, that's minimizing, and it makes us smaller. And the energy of saying, I'm great at this, and I own this, and I'm fantastic, and I'm telling you about this because it's great, regardless of whatever skill level you're presenting or any gift that you're presenting, immediately you're going bigger, you're taking up more space, you're creating more majesty just in the way that you're showing up with it. which is already going to make people feel more in awe and inspired and awake, and that is really great. Like, that's a really amazing thing to be able to do. And I know, as somebody who has been doing the artsy thing in Australia for so long, I was saying this to several people recently, because here we have an epidemic of tall poppy syndrome, to the point where if you want to be really good and do really well at something, it does come part and parcel with loneliness and being cast out from many circles, that you've been in and things, because the tall poppy syndrome is just such an epidemic. And I'm at a point in my life where I am so fed up with that energy that I would like nothing more to wake up and be in a space of people with that go bigger energy, take up space energy, know that they're good. I mean, why do I need to be intimidated by somebody that's great and says that they're great? For me, that's just so liberating, because I have enough self-worth to know that's got nothing to do with me. Like, and it's that thing of, the light that you're in the presence of is the light that you can emulate and find for yourself. And so when you're in spaces where you're constantly made to dim light, dim, it becomes so hard, to be in shared spaces, sharing a gift with people, when it's just not permitted to be bright. And it drives me up the wall. And I think that, wow, that's a huge strength that the US has. It's a huge strength. Yeah.
Yeah, we all definitely need to dip into that a bit more. And I think, we've always said when we've discussed it, comedy is such an exchange of energy. And it starts from the moment you walk on the stage and pick up the mic, and people sense that. So you have got to have a pretty decent core of self-belief to be able to get up there and do it.
And I mean, who's it going to hurt by rocking a mic and walking up there like God just shat you out of the heavens? Like, who's it going to hurt? Do you know what I mean? Like, it feels
that's a line
so
for the comedy
and
poster. Appearing tonight, Dorothy May, God shat her out of the heavens.
And that's the thing. It just, at the last gig that we did, before I had to deal with that bloody idiot, I was just carrying that energy. I was just like, yeah, I'm God, you're God, we're God, let's rock. Like, it feels good. Take up space, be magnificent, because we actually love that. Like, that's a great vibe to give out.
Absolutely.
And like, when you're on stage, you're safe. You are on a pedestal already. The fact that you're standing on a stage and you've got a mic, that's what I love about it. It is a bit more of it tends to be more of a safe space when you're not being harassed. For that.
Yeah. So how would you like to inspire others then through what you've done? What would your legacy be for inspiration?
Oh, put her back in the oven, you know what I mean? She's not done. It's raw cake batter at this stage, Mary.
Yeah. But I think you are an inspiration for a lot of people.
Wait. It reminds me of when I was in grade 8 doing home economics, which is cooking over here. And we'd have to cook something every session. And everything that I brought out of that class and took home with me on the bus that day should have just been in a lineup, in a criminal lineup. Because it was a bunch of shady characters. Like, I remember baking a cake, and I remember literally, it's so comedic to me, but I remember literally being in class and being like, oh, I did it, and then putting it in the oven, and then the bell goes off, and I go, oh shit, I have to take it back out of the oven. I literally just put it in for a minute and we're done. Class is over and I'm going to take it back out of the oven and I'm going to put it in like a plastic bag, and I didn't bring any Tupperware for the session, so I just pour this batter into a plastic bag and take it on the bus. Long story short, that's where I'm at. So that's where my life's at right now. I'm uncooked batter in a plastic bag. But who doesn't love licking the spoon?
Exactly. What I mean, you can't say more than that.
And what I'm trying to say is probably where I'm at right now. You know, I hope I have a lot of dreams for what my legacy will be, you know, in years to come, and like at the end of my life and what that dream would be, which I'm going to keep on lock because I love keeping beautiful secrets like that. But I think that the legacy of like the moment that I'm in right now and what I hope people receive from me when they engage with me right now is just to trust. Because that's what I'm taking out of this moment in life too, is going, how can I just trust right now? Because things don't seem, like from the inside, things don't seem overly optimistic or positive, to be honest. Like, I've been through it in the last several months and we've had a lot of challenges, a lot of what people might label setbacks. And you know, there's a bit of a standstill at the moment, and there's a lot of things that need to move around in the foundations of what I'm doing for the next stage to be even possible. And it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And the beauty of people watching it from the outside is they're going to forget about me while I'm not in their face. And then I'll pop up and be in their face again in 5 or 6 months when I've got my shit together. And they'll be like, oh my God, she's amazing. She goes from strength to strength. And it's like, mate, remember how I disappeared for 5 months? Remember how I was in the fetal position that you didn't see, you know, for a month? Or, you know, I was in absolute the trenches for a month and, you know, riding extreme lows while I'm trying to still strive for extreme highs. And yeah, and so I think it's trust. It's trusting, because this is not like, you know, betting on yourself and doing anything that's out of the mainstream, following your heart and following your desires. It doesn't feel sensible. And even when we try and build a structure around it to approach it in what we might see as a sensible way, it's still so inherently risky. And you know, like even sensible lives where we're not following our dreams are inherently risky. Like, it's just risky to breathe and be alive. And so right now, just trusting and going, yeah, it can seem like a pile of dog shit and like you've absolutely cooked it and it's not getting better and you're not going anywhere. And if you just trust and you just keep showing up as you are, with the intentions that you have, the dreams that you have, the things that matter to you, that things will eventually fall into some kind of order so that you can keep traveling for what you do. And there's a really beautiful poem called, you might know it. I think it's called the Desiderata.
Oh yes, one of my favorites.
Or it might be prose, actually, sorry. And within that, it's beautiful. It's just got like a guide of all of the things in life to remember. And I can't remember the exact quote from it. You might be able to help me. But it's it's something like continue to nurture your gifts throughout the passages of time, because they will be your greatest resource, or they'll be your greatest blessing. Something like that. And I really believe in that, because at times it can feel like your gifts are not doing anything in the world. Like, you're still investing and you're still connecting with your form and your art and whatnot. And you just be getting crickets, or you just don't have that next move to actually make it go somewhere, or you don't have that way of connecting, or, you know, things aren't happening in that moment. But you still do it anyway because it's a part of who you are, and you just trust that if you just always show up in that space every day, like over the period of a whole lifetime, something's going to work. Something's going to be magnificent. Something beautiful is going to come from that. And we don't always get to know what that is, whether that's going to actually ever be financially, you know, remunerating us. But there's so much more that we get from our creative practice, whatever it is, than money anyway. And it's hard when you when you commit to it in a sense where you're wedded to the need for money. And I'm certainly there. Like, to some extent, I do need to be successful at some point, because otherwise I will be in trouble. And that's a reality too. But I think it's important to remember outside of that there are other elements at play too, and that a life of art, a life of your practice is beautiful. It is beautiful. Like, if I can't, one of my greatest blessings in my life is that, and I almost think I might tear up talking about it, because
You're making me cry.
to be able to have spent
what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, just to have been able to have the gift of being able to practice comedy for 3 years, you know, amongst, you know, in a dual sense with, you know, for 3 years I focused on coaching, singing and comedy. And together, the gift of both, to be able to have done that for 3 years. And for me, I knew it wasn't viable to work full-time as a comedian from Brisbane for the last 3 years. I knew that while that's possible, that wasn't going to happen overnight. But what I did know is that I could still make a career from comedy and work a lot more if I did coach it, and if I did create something that benefited others in the same way that I'm benefiting, and if I could practice comedy and study comedy and teach it and, you know, learn and perform and do it in all these beautiful, different, complementary, engaging ways. And it's meant that I've been able to spend hours, like hundreds of hours with the craft that I love. That is, I love it, you know? And for somebody that, you know, that's listening that maybe doesn't do an art form, maybe is approaching it with a love for sports, or, you know, or the sciences, or they love mathematics and you know, those sorts of things. Or for somebody that just isn't super passionate about anything, because I know a lot of people that are just like, I just don't feel that kind of passion in life. Like, I just do things and it's kind of good. And like, there are plenty of people like that too. And what I would say to those people is, imagine for somebody else, for someone that's passionate about a craft, imagine that for them is like the person that you love the most in the world to you. Because for me, the greatest relationship of my life is my relationship to my art. For me, it's like having a relationship to a person. That's how vital it is to me, and that's how much I grieve when I'm pulled away from it and I can't be with the one that I love, you know. And I think that would probably be the best way to communicate that to people that wouldn't understand otherwise what this means, because I know that there's been a lot of like flippancy over the years as I've practiced these forms of people just kind of thinking, oh, it's not a big deal, just put the project off, or just do this instead, or you can do that, you know, later down the track, or it's just a silly little thing. You know, all those like minimizing things of, you know, I'll get a full-time job even though it will impact on your relationship with your art. And it's really hard because it is the love of your life, and it is like a partner, and it is like, you know, asking, well, for me, it's what I would imagine asking a mother to go back to work and miss out on spending crucial years raising her children. You know, it feels like that for me. You know, and I'm not a mother, and I'm, you know, but that's, you know, we all have things. We're all unique in what we have that matters most to us, and where that fits for us. And for me, art has always been. It's always been there for me. So in a world where, you know, my parents haven't been there for me and my family, you know, art was there for me. So in a sense, it almost feels a role that's even greater than a parent or a partner.
Wow, that was beautiful. It was making me emotional listening to you, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone articulate it like that and so beautifully. And I think, yeah, it's your constant, isn't it? And I think it's probably the one thing, you know, will never let you down. And there's not many humans you can say that about.
Yeah.
So I don't think I really need to ask
It's
you
really
where you find your spark from, because I think you've probably just encapsulated it in everything that you've just said about how how that is just the linchpin of your life, really. So I think we can move straight on to success, I guess. And what does success look like to you?
You are asking some ripper questions, Mary. My goodness. This is definitely an interview I need to put in a time capsule. It's beautiful. This is always changing and evolving for me too. Success.
I think it does change as you get older, doesn't it? Because I think perhaps when you're younger, you know, certainly for me, perhaps it was more a focus on materialistic things or what I thought society defined as success. And as you get older, you suddenly realise that less, you know, those things aren't important really at all. And it's about actually having the freedom and the life that you want.
Yeah. I think I do find this really challenging because when I die, I really don't want to die in debt. Like that just, honestly, I don't know why that's the first thing that comes to my mind, but life's been so expensive. And I really don't want, you know, that success for me would be being able to hold my own and carry my own and carry my weight and not die with debt, but maybe die with having saved some money that could actually be left to make the world a better place. That would probably feel like success for me because I would be leaving in credit. And as silly as that sounds, I think it bothers me because I'm such a person where my whole life I've wanted to leave places bigger and better than how I found them. And I've wanted to make people's lives better by being in it. I've just wanted to leave things better than I found it. And as much as we like to separate financial conversations from the larger overall spiritual picture of things, I do feel like it carries a lot of weight because for me, I know that if I were to be able to, you know, die with a lot of money to give people that needed it, it would really, for me, say, hey, you were able to be generous and you were able to make enough of an impact in the world to have a lot to give, not only through your life but at the end to have left over to give. And I just feel like that would be a legacy I'm worthy of, I think, of leaving behind. And so success for me will be when I can get to that point where I'm living so generously and making such an impact that I can see that financial remuneration of that gather throughout my life, and I can actually do really wonderful things for the world with that. Because I feel like in every other way I already do wonderful things for the world, and that's the thing that's left for me to conquer. I think that when I talk to people and when I make my art and I live my day-to-day life, I think I give more than I take, and I think people feel that they receive from me and they benefit from me. But that's one thing, that's still a mountain to climb. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think one of my favourite quotes, it's on something that my dad got me, was from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he says, "If one person has breathed easier because of your existence, that is to have succeeded." And that is a quote I carry through life, and I think, yeah, you've definitely made a lot of people breathe easier in this world. So, can I tell them about your dream that you've got to have the place in the country to bring people to? Because I think that's a
Yeah.
really lovely embodiment. Or you'll explain it better than me.
Yeah, I would love, I mean, my dream for in, I don't know what the timeline is at the moment. I feel like my timelines are a bit, who knows, but whether it be in 10 years or 20 years, I would love to have this beautiful, like have a beautiful farm and a beautiful big farmhouse with like lots of housing in it, you know, lots of spaces for young women to come and live and stay and kind of heal themselves in this beautiful farmhouse with other young women that have been through similar things to myself, where they haven't grown up in a home where they felt safe and could kind of recover and soothe and find a sense of what it feels like to be safe. And at this, I've got this beautiful vision of Christmas time, because I've spent a lot of Christmases alone, where we'd have a big long table on the farm. And I can already see it'd be like in a beautiful lane of trees on each side with like lanterns and things, and we'll have a big long table that goes, like I joke to you about this, but I want it to happen. Eventually I want it to become such a long table it goes for like a kilometre.
Yeah.
And
Like
it's just
binoculars
a kilometre long. Yeah, like almost like Mad Hatter Tea Party style probably too, but like a big long table full of a banquet for this fruit, like a Christmas feast, and just beautiful people along this table, whether they be the people that have stayed at the farm in like previous years and recovered and kind of done some of that healing work and then gone on to thrive and do other things, you know, just everyone sort of coming back, and the people that have used this as a healing tool and us currently staying for respite, and just everybody filling up this big long table and being able to, you know, swap seats and get to know other people that have like gone through similar things, and hopefully have some people at the table that have just done beautiful, inspiring things, and just to know that there's hope and there's a future, and it's never too late to be at home. It's never too late. And, you know, I imagine at this farm that we'd have like lots of animals, because animals are so healing. You know, I've got my first dog this year, and she's brought me so much healing. She's healed me in ways that you can't put into words. And so, you know, having animals that could help facilitate that process, and, you know, just doing art and music and maybe even learning how to kick some ass and, you know, do some Muay Thai and, you know, all of those things that all the things that I've done over the years that have helped me recover and heal, to kind of create a space for that too. So that would be the dream. And I know that a lot of people that do achieve great success in entertainment go on to do wonderful things like that. Like, I think that Oprah has an orphanage, and I'm pretty sure Tiffany Haddish does something else with girls as well, like foster kids. I think she does something like that as well, because she grew up in the foster system. So I think that for me too, being able to dream big like that at this stage of my life is really inspiring, because I think that where I'm at the moment, when I'm sort of reaching the edges of the fishbowl that I'm in, you can get a lot of negativity and a lot of people that judge you negatively for wanting more, or for pushing, or for, you know, trying to actually achieve what you're doing. And it's really important to have the grounding of knowing the greater purpose for your work, and that the greater purpose for your work isn't to get some fancy designer shoes, although fucking go for your life if you get to have that opportunity and that brings you joy. But the greater purpose of, beyond just doing what you love and being able to, you know, give that to people, is that you could have power in the world, and you could have money. And I don't believe money is a bad word, but I think that we treat it like it is. But you could have money and you could have that power to actually do something that's so loving and caring for other people that it could heal the deepest parts of you, you know, and that you could really make a difference. And I think we have to keep that in our mind's eye as we move forward, to keep us grounded, and to keep out of self-loathing, and to keep self-loving as we take strides, and know that we are so worthy of all of the success and all of the celebration, all of the wonderful things, because we are on a journey to do more of that for other people, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I definitely want a seat at that table, and I think that's something that I could see spreading.
You will.
Spreading throughout the world as well, because I'm very similar. That, you know, I'd love to set up a community theatre locally, because to me, like, youth theatre was my ultimate saviour. I started going to youth theatre when I was 11, and it gave me so much. I ended up being in 2 youth theatres, and I just think it's a great outlet for kids. And there's a lot of, like, what I call stage school type places that not quite, you don't get that experience, but there's something very raw about letting everyone just express themselves. So yeah, I think, yeah, we need to have the Dot and Mary Foundation that spreads throughout the world, so we can spread the joy that we've had.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, our visions and our dreams may change too, and that's what's beautiful, is that, like, we can have these visions to inspire us today, and they can morph into something different, but the essence always remains the same, which is that you can extend what you've had, you know, that the gifts that you've been given, you can spread them and give them to other people. But I love that so much. And yeah, it's interesting you say that, because my biological mother, she did youth theatre as well, and I know that was very healing for her. And it's just interesting that you say that, because I remember saying to my mother several times, you should set up a youth theatre, Mum. You should set it up, because you would do something for you. It would be really special for you, because you'd get to see other people benefit from the thing that you benefited from. It's a big part of it, isn't it? Carrying that torch and enjoying something for yourself so that you can pass it along too.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I think you remember the people that stood out to you and helped you, and they probably don't even think about it or think that they were an inspiration. But they will never know, perhaps, the influence that they had in someone's lives by giving them that outlet, and that expression and that freedom that perhaps they didn't have anywhere else. So I think, yeah, it is almost a duty, really, if you can, to pass that on and continue with it.
And I think it just keeps it pure. It keeps you generative. I don't think it's a coincidence that the word generous and generative are so similar. But when you think of generative, it's making, it's doing, it's gathering, it's creation. And I think that people get really sick and really stagnant when they forget that forward momentum, and they forget that connection to creation in the realization of their dreams. because there are a lot of people that reach great heights of success and kind of don't do much with it, right?
Yeah.
But
probably the majority.
I don't think they're the happy. Yeah, and I don't think that makes them happy. And I think that they're just a bit lost, and they just have, failed to realize that the generative energy, the generous energy, is what's going to actually like elevate them and make them take them to that like fully evolved experience of joy and like what we're here for.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Purpose.
I think the superficial stuff is fun too. Like receiving shiny things and novelty items and novelty experiences. That's fantastic too. But it's got to feel pretty hollow if that's all that there is, I think.
Definitely. So we're coming to the end now, and it sounds like that young Dorothy had a really difficult time and things weren't always great. So what do you think she would say if she could see you now and how far you've come and what you've achieved?
It's so funny, like when I looked at this one, I knew straight away what she's saying, and she drives me nuts every day. Literally every day I wake up and she's like tugging at me. She's like, come on, more. What are we waiting for? What are we doing? And I'm like, oh, bitch, please. I'm exhausted. It's been an exhausting life. And she's like, Dorothy! Like, hurry the fuck up. And, yeah, that's what she's saying. Because she still wants to be in a blockbuster movie. She wants to be frolicking around in costume on set. Like, that's all she wants to be doing. So she's like, what are you waiting for? What are you doing, woman? And I'm like, we need to plan. We're working towards it.
We're getting there.
Oh, she's so sick of my shit and so impatient. And I love her. And so living of life is just trying to find this balance between the I'm planning and the hurry up, and the impatience versus the waiting too long. The adult and the kid have to kind of work together to kind of get a good middle ground of that. But she also is just... It's interesting. I think she's also just aware. She knows that I'm just working hard right now and I'm not really seeing myself or acknowledging myself. Like, I'm not really present to where I'm at and what I'm doing, because it kind of just feels like a in-between time, not a notable time. She's just kind of like, yeah, I get it. I get where you're at. Like, this is not our greatest moment. This is not our finest hour. But yeah, but she's happy with me in the sense that she knows that I've made all of the decisions that I needed to make for me. Like, there is nothing that I've done. Like, I couldn't have made any other decisions any other way. Like, she's always there being like, you had to do it. That was the best of the options, So, yeah.
Well, I think you've definitely made the best of the hand that you've been dealt, because I don't see many other people would have kept going the way you have. You're definitely one of the most resilient people I've ever met. And I really think what you've shared today will be really inspirational to a lot of people. So thank you for being so honest and vulnerable and articulate and hilarious as ever. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to everybody getting to listen to this.
This has just been so just It's been really generative, Mary. Like, it's really been so generous for you to just, sit with me for an hour and a half and delve so deeply into my world and my experience. It's such a luxury that I don't think that, not many of us really have, you know? And it's a beautiful gift to give people. So thank you so much for providing this space and doing that for me. And yeah, I hope that other people do hear it and that my experiences do align with others, and even if they haven't walked the same path or have the same experience, hopefully that they kind of have had similar feelings, or that there's something useful in it as well. We all have so much wisdom to tap into, and conversations like this definitely bring it out of us, so I'm very appreciative. It's been really lovely.
That's great. Well, thank you for saying that. It really means a lot, because it's a real privilege to listen to people and bear witness to their stories, and that's really why I wanted to have the Building Bliss podcast, to talk to people like you, real people who've been through some real dark times, but you've got through it and you're thriving, despite all the stuff that's been thrown at you. You still come up thriving as best you can. So thank you very much. And yeah, we'll wrap it up there.